So there were people, when CARE started in 2002, that generated some people. When this 2398 program launched, did that cause more people to come into the field in California?
Well, when the California AB 2398 law went into effect, yes, that induced some new people to get into collections and to get into processing. And it was driven in part by the subsidy going forward. The folks that were doing this before AB 2398 went into place were part of the original CARE initiative.
Yeah.
There were just a handful, 2 or 3 or 4 that were doing it before CARE came into existence. And then we saw a nice growth in CARE over the next several years. Unfortunately, we lost a number of people in 2008 with the economic downturn. Now things are stable and starting to reestablish. A big event for us was adding StarNet as a corporate partner back several years ago. They're a corporate buying group, very successful buying group. And we're looking at the opportunity to bring some other groups into CARE, in the second half of 2013 to see our growth continue.
Did the marketplace change with the advent of 2398? I mean, before that, did collectors have to pay for carpet, or were they paid for carpet, and has that changed after 2398?
Right. I think the biggest impact in terms of that balance, pay to take versus pay to get, is seen in the state of California, because there is now some competition amongst the collectors to get enough material to either supply to the processors or the processors that are doing their own collection. So, for example, we do know one of the unintended consequences of AB 2398 was the processors that were collecting were getting paid to take carpet. In some instances now, they're having to pay to get that material into their shop to feed their equipment. If you got an investment in capital, you want to base load your capital, and that was an unintended consequence. Said another way, some of those subsidy funds that were going to the recyclers or the processors were going back downstream to the retailers in order to secure their rip-out material, keep their machines operating.
Is that pretty much, that's in effect now? That's taking place as we speak?
Well, some of that's still happening as the various processors compete with one another to gain flow to keep their plants base loaded.
I see.
The other thing that goes with that is not only are they having to be more competitive about getting the material in, they're having to go out further to get the material that they need, and therefore there's added costs associated with truck and fuel and such. So the costs have gone up to acquire.
So it's getting a lot more complicated to be in the business, and these guys, I can remember one of the things at the entrepreneurs meeting you have were near-death experiences or something like that.
Yeah.
And that was an eye-opening effort. Some of the close calls that some of these companies have had over the years.
And I still think we're watching some of them play out right now. CARE's job is to enable and facilitate. So we try to do everything we can to help recyclers keep their heads above water, solve their problems, facilitate technology development, facilitate markets, products, you name it. We'll do whatever we can to help.
Are there major hitches or even minor hitches in this program? Obviously, the polyester situation seems to be a prime problem. You collect, you don't have anything to say about what you collect. And if you have polyester, you really have fewer things to do with it, which is, I guess, the major problem, would you say, at this point for them?
Well, I'd say it's one of our challenges, but I'd also say, being the optimist that I am, it's a big opportunity for us. We've just put in this new incentive to influence the use of, the development of, the deployment of non-nylon materials, of which polyester is an example, in the marketplace. We're trying to use the funds to shift the dynamics in the marketplace, if you will, and I expect some very creative ideas to come out of that. We are also hiring a person to work for CARE on a part-time basis who resides in the state of California. Their job is specifically to work with the recyclers out there to try to help them solve their problems, to work with them from a a business model point of view, to support the auditors that go out to review against our agreed upon procedures, and also to help us expand in the rural counties, because we had 6 rural counties in our pilot program. It went very well. We learned a lot from that. We're now expanding to 10 by January of next year, and then we'll add another 6 to that the following year. So we'll be expanding that program in California. In addition, on a national basis, the CARE Board approved hiring a engineering resource to work on the development explicitly of polyester products and materials, and that person will be starting probably around the 1st of August.
I see. Is every square foot of carpet sold in the state sold under this program? I mean, involved in this program, whether it's in the rural area or it doesn't matter where?
Yes, every square yard of carpet, broadloom, or tile is required to participate in this program.
But yet in some of the rural areas, this is going straight to landfill and there's nobody there to collect it?
Well, that's true at this point in time. I mean, if you think about it, when we started, we start in the urban areas, there's established collection infrastructure there, and then we said, let's run this pilot to figure out, what do we need to do for rural counties, which are completely different in terms of their demographics, their logistics, their geography, than an urban area is. We now have a pretty good handle on, roughly the flow per capita in a rural county that we can expect on an annual basis. We know about how long it takes to fill a trailer. We know how much it costs to process that trailer and get it to a collection or a processing facility. So now that we have those basic logistics understood, we can now talk about expanding that, because the law says it's supposed to be available to all the people of California.
Yeah.
And right now, I think clearly we estimate that recycling of post-consumer carpet is available in principle to 98% of the population of California today.
Which is pretty good, I would say.
It's pretty darn good,
there's
I
a lot
think.
of rural aspects of California.
Yeah. As you can imagine, the cost per pound or cost per capita to go into a rural community is dramatically higher than it is in an urban area.
I see. Are there other major problems that CARE faces aside from this polyester situation?
I think our biggest challenge, Dave, is being able to adapt to a very dynamic marketplace, modify our procedures and protocols to be responsive to those changes so we can maximize the probability of success, to maximize our responsiveness to Cal Recycle when they need us, to our entrepreneurs and the collectors organization, and to our mill members who are working feverishly to figure out how to maximize the ability to recycle these post-consumer carpet materials on both a national basis as well as, in the state of California. So, and that comes back to headcount. So Anthony Klein and myself, we put in long days trying to meet the demands and expectations of everybody, and I think it's pretty clear that people that work with us know that this isn't just a 9-to-5 job. We're collecting a paycheck. There's a lot of personal commitment and passion here, and that's true of all the people that are in this community. You could see it when we get together, the degree of sharing that takes place, the degree of willingness to support and try to help one another going forward. I even have to tell you that one of the nice surprises when I came back to CARE is the engagement of the CARE Board. In the old days, we would have a meeting and everything was up to the executive director to figure out how to do when we left. We have very active committees in the CARE Board now that do a lot of heavy lifting, and we've even expanded some of our working committees to include people that are not on the board but have expertise or specific knowledge they can bring to help us tackle these problems. So, it's a very dynamic organization.
I understand there's a pilot program taking place in New Jersey involving curbside pickup. How's that coming, and tell us about that?
Well, that program is just barely out of the gate. It is a pilot, and the idea is that communities today, through their tax base, a lot of communities provide municipal waste pickup and then disposal in the landfill. And a lot of times when carpet gets installed in a home, the installer simply sets it on the curb knowing the municipality is already going to pick this up and take it to the landfill. Well, one of the problems with that is, it sits out on the curb, it gets rained on, it's wet. We don't want wet carpet because it increases the difficulty of recycling orders of magnitude. Number two, when it gets picked up, it gets commingled with all this other municipal waste. As a result, the cost of segregation and cleaning goes up by a factor of 3 or 4, maybe 5 times. Plus, it's dispersed, so it's not efficient from a collection point of view. So the idea of the pilot is to get the communities to accept there's a win-win here. You're collecting those taxes. You won't have to expend them on trucks for pickup and taking up volume in your landfill. Have the installers bring it back to their installation headquarters or to a central collection point, and then the processors can go out and collect that periodically in a very efficient fashion. High volumes, clean, dry material. It's a win-win for everybody involved, and it helps the processors get enough material to keep their plants running.
It sounds to me like that would be a great idea in California, which obviously you had in the back of your mind.
Well, that's exactly right. It doesn't require legislation. It requires cooperation at the local level. And, quite frankly, we're thinking about are there ways to pilot this in other areas right now. Not ready to take that step yet, but we're thinking about what we can learn here and how we can use it to our advantage.
And at this point, you say in the early stages, so you really don't have much of a feel as to whether this is going to work, be successful or not?
Well, if I were, the optimistic guy that I am, if the municipalities will buy in, and that's where the win-win comes in, I think the odds are fairly high that this could be successful. When I say we're just getting started, I mean the program's barely been in place 30 days, but I can tell you a number of meetings have already occurred with some of the municipal leadership. And in fact, on Thursday of this week, I've got a meeting with two people up in the Northeast that are key players in that program to get our first update. So stand by. Maybe in our next interview, we'll have some good news to share.
What's ahead for CARE? What are you going to be working on here, other than putting out fires, which I guess you do on an hourly basis?
Yeah, we certainly do that. That's part of the intellectual challenge, to say the least. But I think the big things for CARE is we got the entrepreneur meeting coming up in the fall. That's always a very exciting time because these are the guys that live on the front line every single day. Every decision they make is almost like a life or death decision. So we want to do everything that we can support them, make that plan meaningful for them. We really want to continue to expand the program in California, get the non-nylon incentive in place. We want to get that boots on the ground in California. That's really important to us. I think that'll take us to another level, including increasing the visibility of the program around the state and providing support to the folks out there, and getting this national PET resource up and running around the 1st of August to really bring focus. We've got a PET committee that's been working for a year. Lots of good ideas. The progress is slow because it's all volunteers and everybody has a day job. That's why we decided we really wanted to make progress on this. We needed a dedicated resource. So let's hire someone whose focus will be to drive that portion of the program forward.
In closing, sum up the first quarter results at the California Stewardship Extended Producer Responsibility Program.
I'd say we're continuing on a very positive learning curve. We've just submitted a new plan to the state of California, Cal Recycle, for approval. We submitted the annual report to them just a few days ago. We've got an aggressive new incentive program in place. Perhaps I'll hit the highlights. We got a bonus payout for those that process carpet that exceed the average output from 2012. That's on top of the current 6 cents a pound that they get. We've got the non-nylon incentive program, which is 12 cents a pound for producers of products that use non-nylon materials. We approved a $300,000 grant to a California university to work on new products and process technology to use these materials. We've asked that they cooperate with some East Coast schools like Georgia Tech or NC State who have expertise and understanding of textiles and the carpet industry. We have our boots on the ground hire that's going to take place. And quite frankly, we're continuing to refine the communications tools to explain what we've learned, what the data looks like, what we're learning from that data, and how can we continue to refine that process.
You're a busy guy.
Busy guy. I got to run to my next meeting, Dave.
Bob, I really appreciate you sharing this with us. It's interesting, and I don't know how you guys do it.
Well, I got to tell you, it's a labor of love. I truly enjoy working with this community. I've said all along that it's amazing how tough and competitive this industry can be, but when it comes to putting our heads together to solving these problems, everybody comes together in a professional and collaborative manner to try to tackle the problems. You couldn't ask for more.
Very good. Thanks, Bob. Good to have you back.
Good to be back, Dave.
We've been talking with Bob Peoples. He is Executive Director of CARE, the Carpet America recovery effort. And this is Talk Floor TV.